Good morning or good evening, everyone, dear Dhamma friends. Today, I wanted to do a small desana relating to the Kalahavivādasutta. It's a nice gatha also. Using that, we can meditate on the Pali and then investigate using Vipassana to understand the meanings and also make the mind tranquil as well as very receptive towards the Dhamma. So I'm starting with the Kalahavivādasutta. Kuto pahuta kalahavivāda parideva soka sahamacharasa manati mana sahapesunacha kuto pahuta tetadinga bruhi piya pahuta kalahavivāda parideva soka sahamaccharacha manati mana sahapesunacha maccherya yutta kalahavivāda vivāda jātesu chapesu nani piyasu lokasmim kuto nidana echapi lobha vicharanti loke asa cha nittha cha kuto nidana ye samparayaya narassa honti Chandani danani piyani loke echapi lobha vicharanti loke asa cha nittha cha ito nidana e samparayaya narassa honti Chando nulokasmim kuto nidano vinichaya chapi kuto pahuta kodo mosa vajjancha katan katancha evapi dhamma samanena vutta Satam asatanti yamahu loke tamupanissaya pahoti chando Rupesu disva vibhavam bhavancha vinichayam kubbati jantu loke Kodho mosa vajjancha katan katancha iti pidhamma dvayameva santi katan kathinana pathaya sikhe nyatva pavutta samanena dhamma सातं असातं च कुतो निदान किमस्मिन्मसन्तेन भवन्ति हेते विभावं भावं चापि यमे मत्तन्तम् एतं पब्रूहि यतो निदानम् पश्य निदानं सातम् असातं पश्ये असन्तेन भवन्ति हेते विभावं भावं चापि यमेतमत्तम् एतं ते पब्रूमि इतो निदानम् पश्योऽनुलोकस्मिन् कुतो निदानो परिग्रहा चापि कुतोपहूता किमस्मिन्मसन्तेन ममत्तमत्ति किस्मिन् विभूतेन पुष्यन्ति पश्या नामं च रूपं च पटिच्च पश्यो इच्छानिदानानि परिग्रहाणि इच्छाय सन्त्या न ममत्तमत्ति रूपे विभूतेन पुष्यन्ति पश्या कथं समेतस्य विभूतिरूपं सुखं दुःखं चापि कथं विभूति एतं मे प्रब्रूहि यथा विभूति तं जानीयामाति मे मनो आहु न सन्न्यासन्नि न विसन्न्यसन्नि नोऽपि असन्नि न विभूतसन्नि एवं समेतस्य विभूतिरूपं सन्न्यानिदानानि पपञ्चसङ्ख्या यं तम् अपुच्छिंह अकित्तियेनो अन्यं तं पुच्छामि तदङ्ग ब्रूहि यत्तवतगहं नु वदन्ति हेके यक्कस्य शुद्धिम् इधा पंडितासे उदाहु अन्यं वदन्ति यत्तो यत्तावातगम्पि वदन्ति हेके यक्कस्य शुद्धिम् इधा पंडितासे ते सम्पनेके समयं वदन्ति अनुपादिशेषे कुशलावदाना एते च नात्वा उपानिश्चिताति नात्वा मुनिनिस्सायिषो विमांसि नात्वा विमुक्तो न विवादमेति भावाभावाय न समेति धीरो इति कलहाविवादसुत्तम् एकादशमम्. Now we are done with the recitation. This sutta is in the Sutta Nipata 4.11. This is between the Yakka and Buddha, where the Yakka questions the Buddha on why do quarrels happens, and why there are arguments, and because of that, why there is lamentation, there is grief, and there is stinginess. What makes this happen? Also, why does one get into vanity or conceit to an extent that person gets into arrogance, and due to that he starts slandering? The question is, where do they come from? So the Buddha replies, these quarrels and disputes arises on things, a thing which we hold very dear. And that is the same cause for lamentation and grief, and one becoming very stingy. Because what one holds very dear doesn't want to part it. And when he has it, he would like to protect it. And when he protects it, it is there with him. Then comes conceit and arrogance. So in a way, if we see the quarrels and disputes and arguments resides in stinginess. Because one holds it very dear. And when the dispute arises, so there should be slander. So then the question comes, what do we hold dear in this world, and where does it spring from? And then the greeds, how does that happen? And how does the hope, asa is the hope, nitta is the aim. So what's the origin and where does it spring from? And if there is next life, how does he carry it? So the answer is chanda, interest. I'm interested. And since there is an interest, there is a liking. And because there is interest and liking, I have the world created. And due to that, due to the world, there should be greed to possess what one thinks. And from there comes the hope and the aim for this life and for the next. So he carries with him the interest and the liking to the next life. Then the next question comes. Where does this interest in the world comes from? And how does a person judge? And where do they come from? And when there is judgment, there should be anger. And there should be deceit. And when there is this anger and deceit, there should be doubt also. What does the ascetic say about it? So whatever is identified as pleasure and pain in this world, the interest comes where I don't want the pain, I want only the pleasure. So when a person sees the form and disappearance of the form, he then forms judgment in this world. And when the form goes away, the person wants it back. And when it doesn't come back, he has anger. And to get it back, he will do anything. So there is deceit. And when that form is not coming for whatever reason, then there is doubt. Because there is piyaloka, liking for that, which is the form. So he wants the form which he likes. He doesn't like the form what he doesn't like. If the form which he likes is there, there is pleasure. If the form is there which he does not like, is pain. So these two as a pair are present. And hence they are dvayameva. They are in duality. So one who has doubt should then train in the path of knowledge. And it is from that knowledge this ascetic speaks of these things. So then the next set of questions. Where do pleasure and pain spring from? What's their origin? When what is absent, do these things not occur? And also, on this topic of appearance and disappearance, tell me where they originate. So the answer is pleasure and pain both spring from contact. When there is no contact, neither one can feel the pleasure nor one can feel the pain. Same is the case with appearance and disappearance. Whatever we call as appearance should have contact. Whatever we call as disappearance also should have contact. So when the contact is removed, where is the question of feeling it? Then another set of questions. So where does this contact in this world spring from? And possessions too, what's their origin? When what is absent, there is no possessiveness. And when what disappears, to contact, not strike. This is the most important phase in Dhamma. Our entire Dhamma is on this Vattam Vattati, which is whirlpool of existence and non-existence. Supposing there is a river which is flowing and a pool of water decides to go upwards. Due to the energy accumulation in that pool, it cannot go further and starts rotating there. And when it starts rotating there, one can see that within the water there is a vortex created. And hence in the Dhamma, Nama Rupa with Vijnana is that vortex. They keep circling. So now a person can designate, give a title, recognize, identify, and can say, here it is, or there it is. Now this identification is the name and the form. So he says, name and the form causes contact. If there were to be no name for that form, name is a designation for that form, and form is the way it is identified with. As an example, if somebody were to name this body, they have to name something. A thing has to be created for identification. And hence they give a name called Vilas. This is a formal name for this body. So whenever this body comes to be, it's immediately identified as Vilas. So from the body, it's an identification. From the name, it is a designation or a title. So then there is contact. With this contact only, any transaction can be made possible. Otherwise not. So how does the possession happen now? Because there is a designation and an identification of that designation, as an acceptance of that designation, there is possession. So now I possess as Vilas. So whatever happens henceforth is happening to Vilas. He went to school, he went to the college, he went to the university, he started working, he's making money, he's on the job, he's off the job, he's married or he's not married, he's a bhikkhu or not a bhikkhu, he's a family member or not a family member. All of this are possessions. So there is an itcha, wishing. And when I don't wish to be vilas, there's nothing to possess. Because then there is no naming and there is no identification with that form. And hence I goes away. So if Vilas is there, then he can see, hear, taste, touch, smell and think. If Vilas is not there, then who is the person who is seeing, touching, tasting, smelling? So when the form disappears, this form, either at time of death or when one person goes to sleep in the night, the form disappears. And hence there is no contact. The contacts don't strike. The next set of questions. How to proceed so that the form disappears? And how do happiness and suffering disappear? And please tell me how they disappear. I think we ought to know these things. So Buddha answers in a very cryptic way. So we need to know what is sanni, to perceive. Visanya sanni means not having distorted perception. So we need to have a proper perception, normal perception about vilas. What is vilas? Is just an identified name. Just to be identified. This form has to be identified by this name. And then all the transactions are possible. So my distortion right now is that I am Vilas. And hence that ego, I, comes into existence. So I need to know what this perception is all about. It's about this vortex. In the consciousness is Vilas because of the designation and identification. So when the both are removed, then the person is in samadhi because there is no form. The form disappears completely without a trace. And hence is free of hindrances. However, they are not the non-percipient realms of existence, the four non-percipient. And they do not perceive what has disappeared. which is the four of them, the form. So neither you take that formless nor you take the form. So when vilas is gone completely, the vortex is removed. So he says, na sanni, na sanya sanni, na visanya sanni, no pi asanni, na vibhuta sanni. So vilas is a sanya, not taking that, not symbol, no holding on to upadana, no craving for vilas, and hence no feeling of vilas. Because we're seeing things as they are. This body is named vilas. And hence there is no person called as vilas. And this is the one I need to get into samadhi. So when I really look from the mental frame that there existed no vilas in the first place, then visanya sanni, the distortion is not there. And neither it is asanni, nor that I'm lacking any perception. I am able to perceive the name and the form. The designation is seen. The title and designation is seen. And as well as the identification is seen. And not perceiving on what has got disappeared. So now I enter into the jhana, which is the ninth. And that's how to proceed, so that the form disappears and the concept of vilas is removed. Because it is associated with the concept of that identity, vilas. And hence there is no proliferation of that perception. There is no story. And when there is no story, there is no papancha sanya sankha. So the story making is ended, because Vilas was born in a particular place and he did so many things, and he couldn't do so many things, and he wants to do so many things, and he wants to be so many different ways, in different titles, different roles, different responsibilities. When Vilas is not there, none of this is valid. And then the Yakka asks, whatever I asked you, you have explained to me. I will ask you once more. Please tell me this. Do some knowledgeable people here say that this is the extent of purification? Of Yakka? Or do they say something else? So Buddha says, Some astute, one who has reached, do say that this is the highest extent of purification of the yak. But some of them, claiming to be an expert, speak of a time when nothing remains. Anupadise kusala vadana. Anupadisesa. Utpada means non-arising, without any remnant, without any support, without any material support, without any trace. So when somebody has done kusala, meritorious, nothing remains there. Knowing that these states are very close and knowing what they depend upon, the inquiring sage. So you should read Upaniyasasutta. In that, Buddha says the near factors. Upa means near. Ni being there. Actually, it's between a teacher and a student. Upanissa. Upa plus ni plus assa is upanissa. Upa is near. Ni is to sit down, to be close by. Assa, oneself. So to bring oneself very near. So when one knows what are the factors which bring this, one does depend upon, take shelter, take refuge in that Muni, in that sage, to investigate. Jnatva vimutto na vivadameti. Having understood, is freed, and hence there is no dispute. And because of that, bhava, abhavaya. Bhava is to become, abhavaya is not becoming. So it is existence, non-existence. Two extremes are removed. Na sameti dhiro. The brave, having crossed the floods, will not return into any life or of any existences and gets extinguished then and there. and hence released from the samsara. So we can do this practice for the whole day as a meditation object. By reciting and by investigating. For the benefit, I will again recite very slowly. You may also recite accordingly. Kuto pahuta kalahavivada parideva soka sahamacharacha manate mana sahapesunacha kuto pahuta tetadinga bruhi piya pahuta kalahavivada parideva soka sahamacharacha manati mana sahapesunacha macharya yukta kalaha vivada jate supesunani piyasu lokasmim kuto nidana echapi lobha vicharanti loke asacha nitthacha kuto nidana e samparayaya narasahonti chandani danani piyani loke echapi lobha vicharanti loke asacha nitthacha ito nidana e samparayaya narasahonti chandonulokasmim kuto nidano vinichaya chapi kuto pahuta kodho mosa vajjancha katancha evapi dhamma samanena utta satam asatanti yamahu loke tamupanissaya pahoti chando rupesu disva vibhavam bhavancha vinichayam kubbati jantu loke kodho mosa vajjancha katacha etepi dhamma dvayameva santi kati nana pathaya sikke nyatva pavutta samanena dhamma satam asatancha kuto nidana kimasmim asantena bhavanti hete vibhavam bhavanchapi yametamattam yetam me pabruhi yato nidanam passa nidanam satam asatam passe asantena bhavanti hete Vibhavam bhavanchapi yametam yetam te pabhrumi ito nidhanam. Asonulokasmi kuto nidano parigahachapi kuto pahuta. Imasmim masantena mamattamati kismim vibhutena pussanti phassa. Namancha rupancha paticca phasso ichchani danani parigahani. Ichchaya santyana mamattamati rupe vibhutena pussanti phassa. Katam sametassa vibhoti rupam sukham dukkham chapi katam vibhoti. Etam me pabruhi yata vibhoti tam janiyamati me mano ahu. Na sanyasanni na visanyasanni no pasanni na vibhuti sanni. Evam sametassa vibhoti rupam sanyani danahi papancha sankha. Yam tam apuchhimha akitayino anyam tam puchhama tadanga bruhi. Yattavataggam no vadanti heke yakkassa suddhim idha panditase. Udahu anyampi vadanti etto yattavataggampi vadanti heke yakkassa suddhim idha panditase tesam paneke samayam vadanti. Anupadise kusala vadana ete chanatva upanissitati. Natva muni nissayeso vimamsi natva vimutto na vivadameti. Bhava abhavaya na sameti dhiro iti. Kalahavivādasuttam ekadasamam. So with this, we can reflect upon line by line and observe within ourselves. Then come into the dependent origination, where we can look at the Nama Rupa and consciousness, Vijnana, Nama Rupa and Vijnana. And when that name, designation and identification is removed completely from the consciousness, then the Nibbana is experienced immediately. That is where the whirlpool, the vortex is. Removing that vortex makes the water flow smoothly. So there is no disturbance. This sutta takes a person from a normal worldling to Sotapanna to Sakadagami to Anagami and finally into Arhat. The only thing we need to do is to watch in the breath how the circling is happening. Watch in the circulation of the blood. When we say circulation, it already is like a whirlpool. Breath, circulation. Each of these processes are like whirlpools. So when one starts liking something, then comes all the problem. When one gives up, liking, the disliking also goes away. So we can sit for meditation. Go through this sutta, observing the breath. Then the mind slows down. Then as Yakha asking questions to the Buddha, we can start reflecting on each one of these questions. And when we get the answer for ourselves, the wow moment starts. Insight, the awakening happens. And the realization dawns. With realization, one can see the vimukti, liberation as well. Let's end this session for today. May all beings attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana, as that is the only happiness. None of the senses can provide any happiness. It's only removal of anxiety when something which is liked comes into either the eyes or the nose or the tongue or the ear or the body or the thoughts, which is the mind. If sight, sound, taste, touch, smell and thoughts are not of one's liking, then anger is the next answer to it. But if I get it, I don't want to part it, because it is so difficult to get what I like through the sight and sound and taste and touch and smell and thoughts. And hence I'm stingy. But then if I observe closely, it's only the anxiety and nothing else. There was no sukha, happiness at all in the beginning. So relief from pain is pleasure. That's all what it is. So life is filled with anxiety. So let's work out using this sutta to attain Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.